welcome to my channel. In today's video I will be showing you, the topic is sewing advice. So I've always wanted to make this video for a very long time, but I've not really had time. So it's sewing. My advice about sewing is not going to take you so long. I'm not going to make too much statements about it, but I'm just going to say things that I've learned from my experience when sewing. So first of all, for beginners, when you want to start sewing, just start. Don't start thinking I have to do it today, and when today comes, you say another day. When you want to do something, when you want to sew, and this is like a burning desire in you, just go ahead and go for it. And there are lots and lots of ways you can learn how to sew. Just begin by watching YouTube videos, maybe like how to cut fabrics or how to sew a straight line, those basic things like that. Don't say you have to wait to go for a sewing academy or somewhere to learn how to sew. Even there are papers where you learn just the basics. So having said that, don't be in a hurry to jump into to bulk buy. Like I used to do that before. I just take myself to the warehouse where I buy fabrics, and I just buy loads, and after buying loads I get overwhelmed by just seeing the fabrics. So just think about, what do you want to make? First of all, even before you start making clothes, you must have had this flair for fashion. You must have loved just everything about fashion, looking good, looking nice. But when you want to start sewing, don't go to the shop and just buy everything from the shop. Start with one thing and tell yourself, okay, since I want to sew, or you plan towards what you want to make. That's the number one key thing you need to do. Plan towards what you want to make, and ask yourself, why am I making this? Do I really like this? Do I really need this? Is it really important for me to make it? So when you do that, you gather, then you go to the shop. When you go to the shop, you get very tempted. You get tempted to buy practically everything you see. And don't buy because the fabrics are cheap. Don't buy because the fabrics are expensive. Buy because that is what you want. Buy because you like it. Because there is comfort and there is confidence in when you finish making your fabric, when you finish making your clothes, you wear it, and that happiness that this is really what you want. Then when you want to start sewing, you don't really need to buy very expensive sewing machine for a learner. You start with the minimal. You can check on Amazon, you can check on eBay. Just check on these sites and go for the least sewing machine. And when you get the sewing machine that you want, when you go to the shop to buy the threads, buy fabric friendly threads. Don't buy the ones that are very quick to rip. And just practice, practice, and practice. You're going to make loads and loads of mistakes. That is normal. In life in general, we all make mistakes, but that is our learning point. You learn by failing. You learn by making mistakes, but your mistakes doesn't define you. What defines you is the final point, the final way. When you're done, when you know you're really done, you try that fabric, that clothes on, and you see that you got it right. There is this joy in you when you know that you did something and you did it perfectly right. And this advice goes to those that are into making clothes for people. Don't keep taking clothes from people and promise them you'll make it. You take from one person, you take from another. At the end of the day, you have like 10 people, and you have a heap of clothes in your outlet, and you feel so overwhelmed that you're overdoing it, that you're doing it. And there is this thing about, when you are bulk sewing, you begin to make mistakes. You begin to feel like, oh, I need to this is too much for me to do. And when you begin to rush to make things, that is your that is where your mistake starts. The moment you start rushing to make anything, you make mistakes, and from making mistakes you just go all the way downhill. So you don't want to go there. Make one person's clothes at a time. Give them a particular time you want them to come and pick up their clothes. And when they pick up their clothes, when they come to pick up their clothes, let them fit it in your presence. Let them try your clothes in your presence and make sure that they're happy with the clothes you've made for them. Another thing we need to talk about is sewing, and like before you start sewing, you need to have made plans towards what you want to sew. Like even if you're not good at sketching, you can check Pinterest, you can check YouTube, you can check most social medias, and you get loads and loads of fashion ideas of what you may want to make. And when you want to do that, always add a touch of your own design. Don't be too quick to say, "Oh, okay, this is fine." What makes you different is that little touch you give it to make it look stand out from every other person's design. Then another thing you need to think about when you're sewing is when they're having sales. Trust me, I have fallen for this several times. When they're having sales, just be disciplined with yourself and tell yourself you are not going to go to the shop and buy and bulk buy, and after bulk buying you just heap it there and you might not even need it, and you begin to think what you're going to do with the fabric. Always think about, if I'm going for sales, I'm going to buy this fabric for sales, how many customers want them? How many am I going to buy? Do I really need this fabric I'm going to buy? These are things you have to really ask yourself. Don't just buy and fill your wardrobe up with clothes that are yet to be sewn, and it will take you years, a year, 2 or 3, and yet you don't even know what to still do with it or about it. Then you begin to think of, okay, how you're going to send the clothes or even sell it off, the fabric off. So think about all this. Then another thing you have to think about is when you're sewing. This is for learners. When you're sewing, when you start sewing, don't feel like you have to be perfect in knowing how to sew. No. Even at work, most people learn from the work they're doing. So the more you sew, the more you learn. Sorry, I just received a notification in my phone, my other phone. So the more you sew, the more you learn. Like if you learn today how to sew straight line, tomorrow you learn how to sew zigzag line, then tomorrow you learn how to sew in circles, another time you learn how to sew, maybe you just make a basic skirt. Watch loads of videos, get motivated to watch all these videos. Don't feel like, oh, you can never know how to sew. Let me tell you, sewing is the best thing that can happen to you. Like if you're going through a lot, maybe in your family, or you're having a hard time with yourself, if you can sew, sewing takes you completely out of this world. You're just focused on just what you're doing. It's very therapeutic. It makes you have this sense of focus. You just focus. You tell yourself, this is what I'm doing, because I will not say sewing is time consuming, because if you're sewing, you must love to sew. You must enjoy sewing. Sewing is not something that you just want to do because you want to do it. It is something that is in you and you want to learn it. And when you start learning it, you will see that there is joy that comes from it. Like most times when my head is full with my kids screaming over the house, all I do is just I pick up one clothes and I just tell myself, okay, I need to make this. And when I start sewing, the more I sew, the more I'm into it. I'm not paying attention to my environment. I'm just focusing on just that. So like I said, it's extremely therapeutic. Also, when sewing, you need to find what works for you. Like when you're sewing, you should have like a pattern. People should be able to recognize it for your handwork. Like me, I like comfortable wears, anything that is free and easy. I really don't put too much work. I don't like sewing that is too complicated. I always find a way to make it easy. because life is a lot easier when you make things easy. So another thing is make sure that you are confident in what you do, because confidence is very attractive. Don't start sewing because you have a friend that sews. Don't sew because there are things around you that you feel is the reason why you want to sew. When you're sewing and you are doing it, and along the line, you have to learn that confidence attracts people to you. The more you sew, the more you're confident in wearing it. People will ask you, who made it for you? Where did you get this clothes from? And before you know it, you will not even know when you start having customers. People will come into you because of what you wear, because what you wear is what attracts people to you. When you wear it and it looks good on you, people will ask you, how did you get it? Where did you get it? What shop? And you begin to tell them you made it yourself. So learn to be confident in what you wear. Learn to be confident in sewing. Also learn to understand fabrics, because there are different kinds of fabrics everywhere. There is knit fabric, there is chiffon. There are just various types of fabrics in the market. So try and understand fabrics, try to know fabrics, different names of fabrics, what they use them for. Then you can now decide the type of fabrics that you will use, or type of fabric you know that will work for you. Like me, I like to use fabrics that are very easy to use, like silk, like like I said, just easy materials. Anything that is easy to use, that is me. I just go for it. So try and read more about fabrics, and it's just like trying to know someone. When you're trying to understand people, that is how fabric is. You need to understand and know what kind of thread you can use on each fabric. You just don't use there are threads and needles for particular kind of fabric, so you need to know all that. Take your time. Don't be in a hurry. Don't be in a rush to learn how to sew, because sewing is fun, and there is no joy like making money from what you love, making money from what you enjoy doing. It's just like making money from your hobby. When you have a hobby and you make money from it, you won't see it as a job. You see it like, yeah, this is. I don't see it as a job, but it's good that money is coming out of it as well. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that these little tips will go a long way for you, especially if you're learning how to sew. So I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye.